Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Siege Fairy, and today we're going to go over Breaking Bread v3. It's not actually v3. I haven't really changed anything substantially about the team. I haven't changed any Pokemon, anything like that. I don't actually remember what v2 exactly was, and I didn't bother rewatching the last video that I made. Oops. I've been making a few minor changes here and there on stream. If you want to check out my live streaming channel, I'll go ahead and link that down in the description. But about 90 to 95% of all the matches that I've been playing on stream. So if you want to see how this team plays, or at least how I play them, feel free to go over there and see what it is. There's like, I don't know, 10-ish hours, maybe closer to like 8 hours of just Pokemon gameplay over there. I made a few minor changes, and I'll just talk about them here. There's also a rental code. I'll probably try and put a rental code up now if I remember on the screen. So if you want to see what the team is like and try it out for yourself on ladder or casuals or whatever, feel free, have fun. So Sana, my Dachsbun, hasn't really changed at all. The biggest problem that I have run into with Sana is I feel bad about not using her. Like, generally, I want to lead with Sana and Armarouge so that Elite Nico can get some defense boosts off on Sana. And I'm starting to run into the situation where I kind of want someone else to lead. Like, I want a Tinkaton, my Kyla, to lead so that we can get a fake out on. I want Goodra to lead because I suspect that there's going to be something that Goodra is effective against. Something like that. So I'm going to try to be better about actually leading with Sana. And the thing is that when I mostly led with Armarouge and Dachsbun, I was actually doing better than when I try and lead with other people. The other thing, and that is probably in part due to the fact that when I was ranking up, I was playing against people who were more likely to be lower level because they were starting out or they were at a lower rank or whatever else. Whereas now I'm in the middle of Great Ball tier, which is, I think, maybe, I mean, it's not Master Ball, it's not Ultra Ball, it's like middle high. I don't know. It's somewhere in the ladder. It's rank 7 of like 11, so decently high, I would say. But now that I'm running into Great Ball tiers, I'm much more at a 50-50 ratio of winning, as opposed to when I was at lower tiers where I was closer to like a 70 or 80% win rate. I did change away to Mirror Herb. I haven't actually played with this yet. Mirror Herb, what it does is it lets me copy the stats of another Pokemon who increases their stats one time and one time only. I used to have here in its place, God, I forgot what the name of the herb was. Where is it? I used to have in its place, come on. Did I just skip right over it? I might. Mental Herb. I used to have a Mental Herb, and this let me ignore Encore, it let me ignore Taunt, it let me ignore Torment, anything that would prevent me from using Baton Pass, and that's literally only come up one time ever, and that was in a casual game. It wasn't even in, like, on the ladder. Whereas there's been a handful of times where a Mirror Herb would be super useful because we have a Volcarona trying to do some setup. I think there was even one game where a Dondozo and Tatsugiri showed up, and getting a +2 boost on everything for Sana would have been fantastic, especially if I could have baton passed that to something like Goodra over here, who could have just lightning bolted the Dondozo away. So yes, there was a reason that I went with Mental Herb, and I don't think that the Mental Herb has really panned out the way that I wanted it to. It's just that I'm not running into the situation where people are trying to taunt Sana. The other problem with Sana is that Sana can be really good, but I really need to pair her up with Armarouge. Armor needs to give her some of those defense boosts. And yeah, so that's just kind of, they go well together, but Sana doesn't work without Elite Miko. And Elite Miko can work without Sana, but it's just something that I have to know about, right? Also, obviously, if I didn't say it before, I want to lead with Sana and I want to lead with Armor because I want to be able to pass on the defense boosts and any speed boosts that I get with agility, as well as anything that I get with Mirror Herb onto another Pokemon. It wouldn't really work with my entire strategy if Sana doesn't have anyone to baton pass to, if that makes sense. Armor Elite Miko has worked really well ever since I changed her up. Lava Plume, I think I'm generally good about using Lava Plume well. The only time that I've actually hit my own Pokemon with Lava Plume was when I had Elite Miko there and I swapped from Elite Miko into Kaicho. Kaicho resisted the fire, but Kaicho also got burned, and that kind of really sucked. I will say that Trick Room is super good, especially when I'm leading with Elite Miko and I know that they have a Murkrow or a Talonflame. Even Volcarona, I didn't realize could do Tailwind, but yeah, they have some Tailwind sets with Volcarona. Whenever I suspect that there is going to be a Tailwind coming up, it is fantastic when I just respond to that with a Trick Room. It does mean that it's a little bit slower for Sana, because usually Sana is the other person on the field at the time to start up, but I can go ahead and get an agility off and have the extra speed, or I can go ahead and just do a body press on, say, a Murkrow, and body press does okay on a Murkrow. Eviolite, which I think almost all Murkrows do play with. A lot of Murkrows play with Eviolite, makes it a little bit less good, but it still does decent damage. It's not like a wasted turn. It's just a little bit slower setup than I would like. I do have Psychic. It does mean that I cannot use Lava Plume or Psychic if there is a Dark Pokemon, and I've seen a problem with Arcanine a handful of times where there is an Arcanine who is immune to the burn and resist it, but then they usually end up going Dark type, so then I can use Lava Plume but not Psychic. I need to get a little bit better with Protect, but the Focus Sash has been really, really useful. Usually what I'll see is maybe a Flutter Mane or a Goldingo or something trying to just throw a Shadow Ball at me and KO me, and I stick around with 1 HP. There was one game that I did where Elite Miko was sitting here for like 5 turns. I need to figure that out, the low battery. Elite Miko was sitting there for like 5 turns with 1 HP because I was protecting when I needed to protect, and then they just kind of ignored her when I needed to do moves, and it was fantastic. I liked it. Plus, I think on that game, I actually went back and got Mume in and actually healed up Elite Miko to like half health and just stuck around even longer. Tinkaton has been absolutely fantastic. I love Mold Breaker and Fake Out. I can just kind of stall. Sometimes Fake Out is not the correct choice whenever I swap in, although I'd say like 80-20 it is, just to be able to stall something that can sweep my team. Occasionally, usually with Iron Bundle, what I try to do is I Fake Out to stall the Iron Bundle from doing anything, and then I try to use another heavy hitter like either Gudra here or Haka to be able to just finish off the Iron Bundle, and they hardcore predict that and just protect with the Iron Bundle, and I waste both of my turns. And usually it's a Flutter Mane. Flutter Mane Iron Bundle, I've seen that combination quite a lot. Usually that whenever they do hardcore predict something like that, it is a pain. I will say that Fake Out is fantastic if I can use it against an Iron Hands, because every single time that I've seen an Iron Hands swap in or start, they fake out too, and Tinkaton is faster than them. So they don't get their chip damage, they don't get their flinch, and I get my chip damage, and I get my flinch. It's fantastic. I will say that Tinkaton is like super hardcore anti-Fluttermane. Nothing that Fluttermane can do that I have seen can actually hit Tinkaton for super effective damage. And Gigaton Hammer, if I can bait out the Protect and I use a Gigaton Hammer afterwards, can one-hit KO. I've seen a lot of Fluttermanes with Focus Sashes, so it sticks around with 1 HP, but usually I can follow that up with my opponent, like the other Pokemon that I have, to be able to do the little bit of extra damage to just do the 1 HP worth of damage. Usually it's good if I have Kaicho here with a Muddy Water, because Muddy Water still hits both Pokemon, and I don't have to waste an entire move just to get that 1 HP down. It's worth it. Getting rid of Fluttermane is great, but I'd rather not have to do that. Play Rough is good against dragons. Skitter Smack I still use occasionally whenever I see a special attacker coming out, and it's also really good against any of those Grass Dark Pokemon. So it's been really useful against Meowscarada, although typically whenever I run into a Meowscarada, they have Protean, Libero, whichever one lets you change the type of whatever move you have. So I don't get a 4 times multiplier, I just get a 2 times multiplier usually. It's either grass or dark. And Brute Bonnet is also really good to be able to just skitter smack the Brute Bonnet. I will say that Brute Bonnet is very, very tanky and is a physical attacker as opposed to a special attacker. So skitter smack usually doesn't just straight up murder, but it does do a healthy chunk of damage. It is 70 base power, so, 70 times 4 is like 280. It's usually enough to take out half their HP. So I've found that Tinkaton has been really, really good. Also, I did swap from a plus speed increasing nature to a plus attack increasing nature. Tinkaton's base speed is around 95, I think, or maybe 94. So it's something that you can not really sweep with. It's just slightly slower than it needs to be to kind of be someone that can outspeed a lot of things. It's just going to be slower. And I found that the few things that I was outspeeding usually wasn't enough of a threat to deal with, So, and there were a handful of Pokemon, a handful of times where I was just barely missing on killing people. So I figured, okay, the increased speed nature isn't really doing anything for me, anything good for me, whereas a plus attack increasing nature would help me to kill some things that I'm not killing now. So I did swap that around. The one thing that's a little bit iffy, or it's just something that is a pain some of the times, is I don't have Protect. I have an Assault Vest, so even if I had Protect on my team, I couldn't actually use it. And this is the only Pokemon without Protect, and it has occasionally been a pain. I just have to be smart with what I end up doing. Usually it's fire that comes with me, and if I can protect that the fire move is coming in, like Arcanine's using Flare Blitz, I think, is pretty common, I can just swap into either Sana or Elite Miko, and that's part of the reason that I always bring Elite Miko or Sana on my team whenever I see an Arcanine on the other side. Especially because if the Arcanine has Intimidate, neither of those use their attack. Sana uses her defense, and Elite Miko uses her special attack, so the Intimidate doesn't really do anything. But Tinkaton has been fantastic. I really, really like how she's worked out. Okay, now we're going to actually talk about some Pokemon that I use the Terra type for. So all of these Pokemon I have almost never used their Terra type for. I don't think I've ever turned Tinkaton Kyla into a bug type. I have once used Elite Miko as a fire type, but that's because I literally had like my first two Pokemon just fainted, and I only had Elite Miko and Sana on the field, and that was not great. And Sana, I think I've only used it maybe once, and I think that might have been in casuals, and that was just because I didn't really have anything else to do. Like, I was losing the match, and I was like, well, let's try and do a little bit more damage, make it a little bit harder to take someone out. Haka, I use Terra type on quite a lot. I want to say Haka going into Flying Terra type is the one that I use the most. And the one thing that has been really, really annoying with the Flying Terra type is Flying is still weak to Ice. So if there is an Iron Bundle or an Obama Snow or something like that that's on the other side, and I want to avoid taking a bunch of damage, swapping over to Ice type doesn't really help with that. Like, I haven't actually seen that this often where an Iron Bundle will actually one-hit KO me, but I think that's typically because I'm smart about not leading with Haka. Like, if there's an Iron Bundle on the field, I just won't bring Haka with me. Or I'll make sure that Haka's in the back line and I won't bring out Haka until the Iron Bundle has been dealt with. Acrobatics is my bread and butter. I typically go with acrobatics, sometimes to a fault, even if Throat Chop would be doing more damage. Like, I use Throat Chop, obviously, whenever it's super effective, but if I'm not Terra-typed, Throat Chop does more damage than acrobatics. I get stabbed with Throat Chop, and the Throat Chop stab is an effective base power of 120, which is 10 more than the acrobatics. It's not a lot, like, don't get me wrong, but it is something that an extra 10 base power can mean the difference between KOing and not KOing. I have not had an opportunity that much to be able to actually use Throat Chop to get rid of sound-based moves, so that's part of the reason that I got it, was to be able to like outspeed Sylveon or Skeledirge. And for whatever reason, I haven't seen a lot of Sylveons. If I had to guess why, probably because Fluttermane exists now, and there's just a better fairy-type Pokemon with Fluttermane. That's the only thing I can guess. Otherwise, yeah, I will say that I've had the opportunity a few times to use Tailwind, but most of the time that I have the opportunity to use Tailwind, and I'm not countering another person's Tailwind, it usually doesn't matter. Like, I'm already outspeeding the other team. So I keep it there just in case, and I have used it maybe once or twice to great effect. And a lot of the time, it's something where I've already used Protect. I know that Haka is going to go down, and I kind of use, or I suspect that Haka is going to go down, so I use a Tailwind as a last-ditch effort to be able to help my team even though Haka is gone. And that's usually when it's helped out a lot. Like, it'll make sure that Gudra down here, Kaicho, will actually be able to outspeed most other things, which is great. Even at 80 or 85 base speed, it's great. Otherwise, I will say, after playing a lot of Fluttermanes and one time forgetting to Terra, you can have Roaring Moon against a Fluttermane, but you have to Terra. You have to Terra into something that is not weak to Fairy. Every single Fluttermane that I've run into where I have Haka on the field, they almost exclusively use a Moonblast right at Haka. It is extremely easy to predict, and if I Terra into Flying, I actually have, it takes half my health. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. I don't know if that's a range or a difference in EV investments or whatnot, but it takes approximately half my health right at. So I can survive 1 Moonblast, but not 2. So whenever that comes, usually what I end up doing in that case is I bait out the Moonbeam with Haka. I Terra type with Haka so that I'm flying type instead of Dragon Dark, who's 4 times weak to Fairy. I take half my HP worth of damage. I go ahead and use Acrobatics against the Fairy, the Flutter Mane, and I also use Gigaton Hammer against the Flutter Mane. Since most of the Flutter Manes I've run into have a Focus Sash, the Gigaton Hammer will bring the Flutter Mane down to 1 HP, and then the Acrobatics will kill it. That's usually what happens. Now, the only thing that is iffy about that is if the Flutter Mane suspects something like that is going to be happening and actually protects. I haven't seen that happen, but it can. And if that happens, the biggest problem with that is just that I don't have a Gigaton Hammer. I can only use Gigaton Hammer every other turn. But yeah, Haka has been great. Gudra, Kaicho, has actually been fantastic. I did swap Kaicho over to using a Life Orb from an Expert Belt, and I have swapped her back just now to swapped him back just now to using an Expert Belt again. And the reason is Kaicho just doesn't do enough damage to make super use of a Life Orb. That's basically what it is. Kaicho does fine damage, but the Life Orb is not one-hit KOing, which is what I would want to see from Kaicho. And the 10% health every single time that I use a damaging move has been very, very painful. I will say that Water Terra type, I do use Terra type occasionally on Kaicho, and putting Kaicho into Water Terra type has been really good, especially against anything that is water, ice, like for example Iron Bundle. Anything that's going to be throwing ice type moves at me, I do have to worry about freeze dry, but the thing with Kaicho is Kaicho's special defense is actually super good. So even if an Iron Bundle uses freeze dry, I'm typically okay. I might have like half to a third HP, but I can respond with the Thunderbolt, and that little tiny mutant Delibird is dead. That's usually what happens. I generally carry Kaicho as an yes, I know. I usually carry Kaicho as an anti-dragon Pokemon, and if I do carry Kaicho as an anti-dragon Pokemon, I do need to rely on that Terra type to water so that I don't just die to Dragon Claw or Outrage or something like that, or Draco Meteor. Obviously, Kyla is also really good anti-dragon with Play Rough, and also just being immune to dragon. So Sap Sipper has also been really nice, even though I'm not making use of the attack boosts at all. Being able to sit there and just tank grass whenever it comes in, like only having one weakness with Terra Water Kaicho has been fantastic. Finally, we have Mume, my Arboliva. I think I need to be better at predicting. Mume is really good to have for bug moves so that I can actually take down a Brute Bonnet in like one hit pretty easily with Pollen Puff coming in. I did have Giga Drain, and I swapped to Energy Ball just now. I haven't actually played with it, and that's because Mume being tanky is great, but most of the tankiness that I've gotten from her has been from Citrus Berry and Harvest. Being able to stall out long enough to be able to get the more berries and heal up. Energy Ball, I thought, I read the base powers wrong. Giga Drain has 75 base power, whereas Energy Ball has 90 base power. An extra 15 base power is just really good. It also means that I'm doing basically the same amount of damage over here. Poison Terra type has not worked out generally whenever I have gotten it. And the big reason as to why is because ground exists. And usually what'll happen is a Garchomp or even a Gastrodon. Is that Gastrodon? It's not Gastrodon. Maybe it is. The water ground Pokemon that's a big giant slug. That one will use an Earthquake or an Earth Power or something and end up killing me. So it's been a little bit hit or miss with using the Poison Terra type. It's been really good to do certain things, but to be able to resist fighting, for example. But usually I end up misreading plays or forgetting that certain Pokemon like Iron Hands are actually fighting type, and I just take a close combat to the face or a Drain Punch to the face, and it sucks. That being said, swapping into ghost moves has been useful, but most of the time that I have a ghost move that I need to swap into when I have an Armor Rouge, I end up not bringing Mume, which has been unfortunate. Mume getting defense boosts with Sana has been good. The speed boosts are kind of wasted just because the normal speed is so low that it doesn't really make sense. But yeah, that's how the team has been going. That's how I lost a lot of games yesterday because I was I think I just had an off day, honestly. But yeah, I think it's fine. Hopefully it'll be good. And yeah, I'm probably gonna be making another team. I have an idea for something centered around the Dunsparce. A lot of this is stolen from other people. I think Cybertron, Aaron, Cybertron Zhang had a team based around a rattled Dunsparce, and I want to play with that a little bit and not use it was a Jolteon with loaded dice using Pin Missile. I think I want to do a Dunsparce Mousehold lead with Beat Up, and we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to try and make that team, and whenever I do get around that, I will make a video to kind of explain what that is. I don't know how long it'll take to get all of those Pokemon trained up and whatnot. It'll probably be a few days, but maybe at the end of the week I'll have another video that's talking about the Dunsparce, or the Dunsparce team, and I'll probably swap between using this team and that team. But anyway, that's going to be it for now. Thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully I'll see you again next time, and I need to charge my Switch things, my Joy-Cons. I need to get another pair of Joy-Cons that don't have Joy-Con drift too. Anyway, bye-bye!